Have you ever wondered why family members of a narcissist seem indifferent to their harmful behavior? Like it almost seems like the narcissist doesn't even matter to them of what they're actually doing. They could be doing something that seems extremely abusive or extremely awful, and the family members just don't seem to care. Maybe you've seen the family members start to adhere to that person's reality and they start coming after you. They start being enablers of the narcissist, or they start being flying monkeys. They start attacking you, or they start making you feel like you're the crazy one because this person is a great person. Why would you be upset with this person? We see this a lot of times in different relationships when the narcissist has family members and friends that treat them like everything is perfect, even though they see the stuff that's actually going on, even though they see and know the abusive behavior or the cheating or the lies. And you might be wondering, why don't they actually care? Like, wouldn't they see this and think something's wrong? Wouldn't they see this and think, hey, maybe we should like talk to this person? Why don't they actually care? We're going to dive into that today, so stick around. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, rate, review. If you're listening to the podcast today, thanks so much. I appreciate it. And share some of this with other people who might be struggling with the same thing. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness about narcissistic abuse. I'm the founder of the Raw Motivations and your guide in the 7-day challenge called Escape Toxicity. How to actually start to be free from toxic people, toxic relationships, and the guilt and shame that comes from just thinking, how do I actually get out of this? So check that out. Go to rawmotivations.com. When we talk about this piece of the narcissistic family and how they actually don't care about what the narcissist is doing, one of the first things we need to point out is the narcissistic household oftentimes is inundated with enmeshment. And this enmeshment piece, oftentimes you'll see from a narcissistic male with a narcissistic mom, or some dynamic there that has them sort of enmeshed together. It's not always that way, but that is the typical way that people see. Now, with the enmeshment piece, a lot of times it's bringing in different family members into the same social circles, in one sense, as a family member, where they're seeking control, admiration, and attention. Narcissistic, right? But with a household, a lot of times boundaries oftentimes get very blurred, or there is no boundaries at all, because it doesn't really seem to matter who's in whose life, who's in what stuff. Like all of it kind of like blends together. The individual identifies like may be sacrificed to serve the needs of the narcissist. So there's going to be people that come into the narcissist life that's like, hey, you are meant to actually serve. Because it's like, wait a second, there's not these boundaries here anymore. There's not this like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do this. But like, no, it's going to actually mesh together. So enmeshment, what that refers to is the emotional and psychological entanglement between family members. Okay, so this is where like people get entangled, oftentimes where people get involved in different people's business that is not necessarily their their priority, or not necessarily what they should be. Okay, an example of this would be a mom and a dad that bring in a young child into their arguments. Okay, so I saw this just recently with a couple clients where like the narcissistic dad would bring the daughter in, triangulate with the wife, and also bring them in of like talking bad about the wife and being like, it was just this whole like mess. It was this whole ordeal. Okay, but bringing her into private conversations just to be able to feel better because he wasn't actually standing up as a man and actually talking to his wife. Whole big thing. Okay. But this whole piece of the enmeshment part is where the family members start to connect on a different level, where their thoughts, emotions, and actions start to revolve around each other's desires of what they actually want. Now, when you have a narcissist that grows up in a narcissistic household, they're going to be inundated with lack of boundaries. They're going to be inundated with this idea of the sense of entitlement. They're going to be inundated with all these different pieces of it. Now, oftentimes it'll get to the place where the narcissistic household will minimize and trivialize the thing that the narcissist is doing. Why? A lot of times because it is what they have already done or what they saw growing up, and they didn't care to change because it felt normal in that regard. Sometimes this is why you will see generational trauma, generational curses, generational things that are happening in people's lives because it's been passed down from person to person to person, generation, because that's what they're used to. That's what they've seen. That's what they understand for such a long period of time. So you get to a narcissistic family and they don't care about what the narcissist is actually doing because that's what they're also doing. That's how they've lived. That's how they've grown up. And that whole enmeshment piece of lack of boundaries, moving like togetherness in one sense, creates this weird dynamic that a lot of times it's like, yeah, that's who he is, but I'm going to ignore it. but it's okay because it might reflect back on them of what's actually revealed inside of them. Okay, so in a narcissistic household, like children may be expected to prioritize the narcissistic parent, their wishes over their own needs, leading to a lack of autonomy and leading to a lack of independence. Now, sometimes that will be on the flip side where that produces the narcissist. And the narcissist like will connect with the parent in a different way, but then when they're away from them, might even badmouth the parent. Like it's a very interesting dynamic. A lot of times you'll have a narcissist that will badmouth the parents, but then with the parents, not badmouth them, image, like the respect, the love, like all different types of pieces there. But then you still have the parents that look at the narcissist and like, okay, like he's just having a hard time. Like he just has communication issues, but not really wanting to acknowledge it. So part of this steps into the aspect of just wanting to ignore it. A lot of parents from a narcissist parent, a lot of them would get to the place of like, I'd rather just ignore the behavior. If I ignore it, then it doesn't exist. If I just avoid it, kind of like avoidant personality, like if I just avoid this, then I don't have to deal with it. Okay? Sometimes you're going to have this with different family members from the narcissistic family, like downplaying it, being like, it's not that big of a deal, or just completely ignoring the narcissist's hurtful and harmful behavior to you. A lot of times this will occur due to either fear of how the narcissist is going to react. Like they might say something and he just like explodes on them or cuts them off. So this could be a piece of like, hey, I don't want to say anything out of fear. The other piece is a lot of times trying to maintain this like semblance of like everything's okay, which oftentimes goes back to image focus of like, let us look this way to society, to church, to the rest of the people that we have, to our friends, to our other family, that we have it all together, even if this part is falling apart. It could also be with the kids, especially different sense of like powerlessness, or even the parents of like, I can't change it. Like he's going to do what he's going to do, so I can't change it. So let's just minimize it. Let's just put it to the side. Oftentimes you'll see this aspect of denial with the narcissistic family and this aspect of like, let's minimize just how bad it actually is. It's not really that bad. And it all of a sudden starts to make you feel even crazy because you're like, they see it and they don't even do anything about it. Maybe it is me. Okay, it oftentimes will promote this aspect where you feel insane because other people around that actually do see it in the narcissist family don't say anything about it. Okay, now sometimes it's just to be able to preserve like the family's fragile like structure of like, well, we want to keep this together so it looks good or so it comes across right. Okay, even when the narcissist engages in like abusive behavior, the family may rationalize it. Okay, push it aside of like, well, he's just really stressed, or this is just a temporary phase, or maybe he just drank too much that day. And the whole thing is let's avoid addressing the deeper issues at play. Now, this is true in the family because if they actually acknowledge this, they'd have to address the deeper issues at play for themselves as well. Of why did this actually happen? Where did this come from? Like, what was my part in this? Like, all of these different pieces. And a lot of times narcissistic families will be like, let's just shove this to the side, sweep it under the rug so we don't have to deal with it, so we don't have to deal with the pain of what might be actually true if we looked into this. Okay? Now, the problem with this is then narcissist family becomes enablers, becomes flying monkeys. Now, they've probably already been enabling this person for a long period of time. But what we see with this is that they start to be more and more enabling because they start to support or even protect the narcissist. This is where we've seen different aspects where the narcissist has done something like illegal or done something like morally wrong and the family hides it. And they try to make sure that no one else knows what's actually going on so that they can be protected, either the family image, the family name, the family idea. But it's like, let's make sure we actually protect, support, hide this, even if it means disregarding your well-being or disregarding like the law. Okay, then you also have flying monkeys. Now, on the other hand, like they're people that are recruited by the narcissist to carry out their bidding, to further out perpetuating the narcissist's manipulation and control. Family members in a narcissistic family oftentimes are very easy to be able to do that. Because you have like the whole like blood is thicker than water. And so they'll try to be like, let's get this person to be able to support me. And so the narcissist tries to gather other people that only see their side of it, that only see their reality, to be able to do what they want to do to you. Okay. Now you might see this as like a sibling in the narcissistic family that might cover up for the narcissistic family member's wrongdoing, or spread rumors, or discredit those who actually challenge the narcissist behavior, becoming a flying monkey. You're going to see a lot of different variations of this. I'm just trying to give you a quick overview of what this might look like. Well, a lot of times the narcissistic family doesn't care because they either are narcissists and this is how they've lived, so it feels normal to them, or they're hiding it. They're trying to ignore it because if they actually acknowledge, hey, this is a problem, then they have to start looking at themselves and being like, what actually happened? Was I a part of this? What actually transpired? How did this come about? All those different pieces. Or they're just trying to like sweep it under the rug and be like, hey, this doesn't actually exist. And they become enablers of like, well, he just needs more love. I just need to solve this problem. I need to come in and save him. And then you start having this different piece of enmeshment sometimes where you're in the relationship and the narcissist is still communicating with his mom on a very like unique level. That's not actually like helping your relationship. I haven't really talked about enmeshment much. I haven't really talked and dove into that subject. That's not a part of my story, so I don't feel like I have a ton of just like firsthand knowledge, but it's one that we'll see about bringing to the table as well. If you guys have any questions about this, especially if you're listening or watching this on YouTube, like leave a comment down below of like, what other questions do you have? Or what have you seen in the relationship with your narcissist of like, hey, this is what's been going on with his family. This is how they've been reacting. This is how they've been responding. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, rate, review, send this to someone else. You never know, when you send one of these to someone else, you might be the first person that's giving them the keys to get free from the toxic relationship that they're in.